Okay, so it took a little while, but piddling around off and on, finally got all the materials set for the components I didn't have. So here's the two-axis joystick. I guess I forgot. Oh, I forgot the ones on the bottom here, but those won't be seen. I'll need to come back and get those. The part we'll be able to see I got finished. So I'm going to select both of these, the pins to connect it, as well as the joystick, and just hit Control C to copy. Then bring that over here and Control V to paste it. There we go. And now I'm going to reselect both of those. First selecting the pins, and then holding Shift for multiple selections, then Shift and select the joystick, and Control J to join that into one piece, because that's the one I actually need them connected on this design. And I figured the general design, it might be better if they weren't connected. And then over here, you can see it got all the materials placed on that nano that was downloaded earlier. It took a while. There were faces left for, there was face spots to color in all the labels, but I didn't bother with that. It took long enough just to get that in there. So that provides all the pieces. Let's see, I think this needs to turn the other way, so I'll rotate that along the z-axis 180 degrees. There we go. And then Shift D to duplicate it. So we got two joysticks, the twister, the flipper, the slider, 4 action buttons, the microcontroller, and then some pull down resistors for several of the components. So that's all the components we'll need for this. And there's different views. If we look at material view, this might take a moment to load in. This will give a slightly better perspective of what that looks like. There we go. The pieces look a little more solid and plastic, and it's kind of somewhere halfway between the generic view and the actual rendering. There's textures that will apply in the rendering, and then some of that, how vibrant it is, will back off. But I kind of prefer to work in just the regular object view. You can kind of see there's different ways to look at it, but all the materials are applied to the new ones, and yeah, just over a few projects, the number of these that I have is kind of added up. So now we're ready to bring all these pieces in and mount them on the board. And to do that will just be a matter of kind of zooming in and looking at the right angles. So I'll start here with the nano, look at the overhead view, and select this, and then grab this little arrow to move it into place. Should be somewhere around there, I guess. If I look at the bottom, you can see where the pins are. There they are. And there we go. And just kind of line all the pins up with the holes to get that exactly where it's going to be, needs to be for representing our device. So that's a little high still. So holding the middle mouse button kind of changes the angle, and then also scrolling that. And if you hold Shift and the mouse button, that's what moves it up or down, kind of reorients everything. So I'm going to look straight on from the side and bring that down until it looks like about the right position, the position that will be soldered in. There we go. So that's one piece mounted on there. And then I'll do that with each one of these pieces. I'll just bring them in and orient them directly into the holes where they will be mounted. The same process we just saw, so don't really need to watch that. So I'm going to pause the video, do that, and I'll be right back. And here's all those pieces mounted together now. So it's just a lot of moving those in, making sure everything was rotated to match the orientation. Everything lined up nicely with the holes on the PCB, and there should be room to hold it and use this controller. It's kind of nice to actually see what it's going to look like once it's finished. So that'll be a good working one. Everything is still in separate pieces here. So what I want to do is now I want to select everything. Whoops. Get get the selection tool I like. So is everything selected there? I believe it is. So with everything selected, I'm going to push Shift D to duplicate it. And then, oops, undo that. Let me try that again. Select it, then push Shift D to duplicate it, and bring this over here to the side. And now with all these selected, I'm going to push Control J to join those into a single item. So this is the one we'll actually use to model the case, because everything's set up in the right size. And then for, like, say, exploded views in the documentation for it or something, we can just grab these pieces and grab all these pieces and bring them out to get us a good exploded view for the documentation if we need something like that. Go back to what like it was. And then this one over here is the one we'll use to model our case. We'll use that to set up all of them to make sure we have everything right for a plastic case that we can just send off and order from a factory the same way we ordered this PCB. And so that'll be good for the CAD stuff for now. We'll come back and do the case. Yeah, it looks like we'll be able to test with that board. Everything hooks up nicely and be able to hold it without too big of risk of shorting things out on our fingers connecting pins. That doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen occasionally, so have to watch out for that when testing. But I think now that I look at it, it looks like there's room to position the fingers without touching any of the pins or solders on the back side. Because remember, the human body does conduct electricity. I have to worry about that. So I think we'll be able to do some testing before ordering the case. So we'll come back and do the case, but we'll use the solid model for that. And this model for the any exploded views or any adjustments we need to make. And for right now, I need to take a picture for the documentation. Just get an updated picture for the documentation. So I'll push Windows Shift S to get a quick screenshot of this. That'll work. And I'll save that here in just a second. So I think that'll be good for this video. So we have our CAD model started. We still need a case for it, but we'll come back and do that after we do a little bit of testing, a little more testing on the device, and set up some scripts on the computer to receive or to request the states of the controller, or just continuously receive information about the states of the controller so it can react to it. So let's go get started into that now. And real quick to finish up this section, just another reminder, don't put off the boring part till the end. You don't want to finish the fun part and only have boring part left. So I've updated the documentation a little. I threw a picture of what we have in here. It's used that picture we just took, which was actually for labels for the instruction page, which the next step we'll be ready to start writing some instructions for something. But got everything clearly labeled, so this is what these pieces will be referred to in the instructions. In part as a reminder to myself, I like to have that picture there so I remember what I called them in the picture. Then on the schematics page, I went ahead and, well, we've seen all these parts, the Arduino we use, the Nano we use, pinout diagram, the wiring schematic for our device, the PCB routing diagram, and I went ahead and threw in an exploded isometric view of the components, just to see what, just to keep the documentation flowing along. Because again, you don't want to put off the boring part till the end and finish all the fun part and only have boring stuff left to do. And then on the code documentation, so that other programmers can reprogram our controller, we still have some information about the INO, but there's not a whole lot going on there now. Now everything's in the C++, so in the basic control unit. we can go through here and see all of the instructions on how to code this up. In particular, down here, here's the part that other programmers will use, and the keywords to send to the controller to get a result, and descriptions of what those results will be. So that way other programmers can use that, and at some point definitely need to go in and start adjusting the style sheet to this to make it more consistent, get some style in there, but that's later. Just wanted to do a quick reminder here of don't put off the boring part till the end. You don't want to be stuck with only boring stuff to do, so work on the documentation along the way. And it also helps to serve as a nice reminder for you, because remember, you might need to refer to some of this along the way too on a big project where the last step is a long time after the first step. So as a reminder to yourself, and documentation needs to be done, so you don't want to get stuck with all boring stuff at the end.